We have a guest with us in person of Deolu Aina, who is a graduate of philosophy from the prestigious Obafemi Awolowo University in Ile-Ife, Osun State. Now, she has a professional certification in life coaching and relationship counseling. She has worked with several clients on grief, depression, and other mental health issues. She also coaches young teens in her community by being a source of strength and support against challenges that affect them. Thank you very much, Deolu Aina, for being our guest.
Welcome to
It's a pleasure being here. It's a pleasure.
Entitlement mentality. In your experience as a life coach, in your dealings with clients, what is it? You know, how would you define entitlement mentality?
It's a sense of of expectation of special treatment,
Right.
without you having any justification whatsoever why that treatment should actually be accorded to you. Because these days you find out that people want to have, although it's there's a level of healthy entitlement where we are all regarded to be, we all want to be treated as humans and to be fair and all, but then the world doesn't owe you that. The world actually doesn't owe you that. You have to earn a certain place, your certain place in the world. You don't just expect people to give you things or do things certain things for you, whether or not you do anything to earn it.
Okay, right, interesting. I like what you said, healthy entitlement.
Yes.
That is quite interesting because, you know, actually, you know, so for instance, I mean, in a marriage, you know, there will be some form of healthy entitlement.
Yeah,
you
definitely.
know, like, you know, sharing, you know, maybe where you are.
Yes,
or where
communication
and all of that. But unhealthy entitlement, which is really what we're looking at this morning, that's actually a very nice distinction.
Yeah, it's very
All
true.
right,
Okay.
Sheye from Lagos, you want to take this one?
All right, yeah, so share from Lagos. This is pretty much, I think this is a long one. Okay, I have had people who feel entitled to my money, my time, expertise, and other resources. They just believe they should have access to what you have, and they throw tantrums when you don't oblige them. There was a young guy who reached out on WhatsApp and was fond of wanting to have real-time conversations with you. So he drops, "Hello, sir. How is the family? I have something to discuss with you. Sir." And he just wants me to keep responding to such conversations. Immediately, he drops them. Now, Sheye goes on to say, this particular response is a pretty long one. And he goes on to say, I told him that that won't work. And he felt offended. The right thing is to leave your message and wait for a response instead of feeling entitled to real-time, ongoing conversations. Then he showed up again and said he wanted to have a meeting with me. I said there was no issues and offered to set up a virtual meeting. But he said he would prefer a physical meeting because that works better for him. And he even gave me his preferred time, not minding if it works for me. This is, I mean, can you see the level of entitlement? You don't know this person.
This is a typical case of an entitled person. Usually, in this kind of case, you have to, like our advice for share. One of the things you'd have to check if this person has an emotional bank with you. How much has this person deposited in that emotional bank with you? You don't just do things for this person, because when people want to help you, the first thing they look at is, how much has this person added value to me? How much have I gotten from this person? Because people don't just do things. People don't just do things. People do things because you have done something for them.
So speaking of done something for them, let me just conclude this comment with
Sheye is not done.
Sheye he isn't done because he doesn't even really know this person. He felt really entitled to my time, Sheye says, and he was someone I didn't even know from anywhere. He just happened to be in a webinar I facilitated. I declined the meeting and stopped giving him attention. I told him to reach out to me by email. People should understand that other people can actually be genuinely busy and they should not display a sense of entitlement to people's time, expertise, money, or anything.
So talking about emotional bank, there's
Yes,
zero.
There's zero deposit in this emotional bank. But you know, it's a rampant thing amongst the generation these days, where people just feel, oh, because I have your number or because I have your Instagram handle or Twitter handle, I feel like I have access to you. Of which is not. It's not. Everybody wants to familiarize with someone. Everybody, but there are levels to this thing. There are ways to this thing. There are ways to actually go about this thing. You could actually volunteer. You could actually just be humble about these things. And that's the thing about entitled people. They have this sense of pride. They have this sense of pride. They have this sense of, oh, superiority. You just have to answer me. You have to answer me because I feel like I deserve your attention. I feel like I deserve more access to you because I have your number. And you know, but in this kind of situation, Share, I feel like you should limit the access. Always learn to say no. Set boundaries. I think you should just respond to the person in a more polite way and tell him why or why not you cannot give him access. You don't need to be brash about it.
Yeah.
You can just tell him. Oh, there are ways to these things. If you want to see me, you can meet my personal assistant. You can talk to this person if you want to reach out to me or something. But this kind of person, you don't need to give them access.
Yeah, but when you respond to people like that, sometimes they will just say that, oh, why are you proud? Especially maybe, okay, for instance, let's say a scenario where an old secondary school friend, where you probably haven't spoken to in like 10 years or something, and then they are coming back into your life, they're trying to get into you, and then you now tell them that, talk to my personal assistant. Oh, sometimes there's that, they can say that, oh, why are you so proud? I knew you were in secondary school. So
it's understandable. Nobody likes boundaries. Nobody likes it. Okay. Nobody likes. But nobody likes to hear no. It triggers some sort of emotion in people, especially when people are traumatic. It triggers some sort of emotion in people. Nobody likes to hear
rejection.
No. Like rejection. Rejection is not everyone that can handle it well. People don't handle it well. It depends on your level of emotional maturity. In the case where you have probably your secondary school mate wants to reach out to you maybe 10 years later, 5 years later, and then you ask the person, you have to go through this good. Like I said before, you think about the fact that this person really deposited in my life, even while in secondary school or up to this moment, you don't have to give access to them like that, because you never know people's intentions. You never know why. And another thing about entitled people is they tend to want to manipulate you. So you never know if that's their intention. So you have to be very careful. So you don't need to give them access all through, but then set boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries
nice.
is very important.
Set boundaries. It's actually, I'm glad that you're saying that we should set boundaries. But before we go into boundary setting, Ade, please,
yes.
Can we get into Port Harcourt?
Right. So Lewis from Port Harcourt. Lewis is saying the most prominent circumstance that I have noticed is when employees or team members feel entitled. In that case, it is best to explain to them when a request can't be granted. For instance, a team member asks to travel with me and his counterparts just for the fun of it, as if traveling was something to be shared around. I had to explain to him that we're traveling because of work and was based on necessity and specific tasks that each person had to do, not for relaxation, as he assumed. All right. Lewis goes on to say, apparently a lot of people in the office felt it was their right to travel as well because others were traveling. We had to break it down to them that it was work. In fact, those that were opportunity to travel described their experiences to others in order for them to understand that they actually went to work and they did work. All right, so sometimes in some offices, in some organizations, certain members of that organizations get to travel out for training, for work, for conferences, or whatever the case may be, and some others. Are they, for the others that haven't or don't, because maybe, and it can be like a direct colleague, it's not even sometimes a senior colleague, sometimes it can be a junior colleague that is picked over a particular person. Do you feel like that staff in that particular context, because the context of a personal relationship and the context of a work situation are completely different?
Yeah, they're completely
So
different.
do you think that staff is entitled, to a trip, if his junior colleague or members of his offices are traveling as well?
Well, I wouldn't say the senior colleague is entitled to work travel, because it all depends on the organization.
Right.
What is written in your offer letter? What is written in your whatever the documents that were of employment that was actually given to you? You know that this certain role actually demands traveling, and your certain role doesn't demand travel. It doesn't mean that just because the junior colleague actually travels, you also have to travel. It depends on work. And then the people who actually delegate all these travels, they have their reasons, probably for trainings. What if your role doesn't need training yet? what if your role actually is probably especially IT skills that can actually be done virtually.
Actually.
Yes, so
Virtually.
it could be it doesn't need most of these roles doesn't really need to travel.
Right.
It doesn't really need to, for you to actually gain training or actually have this professional to be equipped professionally for these roles that you're playing in your organization.
We do live in a global village.
We live in a global village, and during the COVID period, it actually showed us that we can actually connect without us being physically present. You know, an entitled person is not necessarily a narcissist. What a narcissist has a high form. A narcissist has a high form of entitlement. They feel they are superior. They feel they have to get their demands from you, whether you like it or not, or because of their feeling of superiority. And most times this thing is based on childhood traumas. We could trace it back to childhood traumas. You know, when you give in to your child all the time, it starts from there. When you don't say no to your child, you know, it's as parents, you always want your child to be happy, you always want them to be content and all. But in giving to their demands all the time, it tends to create a sense of entitlement in them, and they grow up expecting it from the society as a whole. Do you understand? So they expect from society as a whole, and then they go on and they in their relationships, in their workplace, in school, they expect their teachers to give them grades they don't deserve. You hear students say, my teacher gave me an F, of which you scored an F.
Scored an F. The teacher didn't give you.
You scored an F. The teacher didn't give you. Or they failed me in university. I got a carryover. They gave me a carryover, but you actually failed. Yeah, so it's a personality trait thing. It's a personality trait, and such a person has to seek professional help for them to overcome such things, especially when it becomes a disorder.
Yeah. So still talking about the personality trait thing, what are some of the telltale signs that an individual with entitlement mentality would show? So what are some of the signs?
Okay, so usually they feel like the rules don't apply to them.
Right.
They feel above the rules. So the entitled person could walk into a bank and go to the front and be like, answer me. I want to withdraw my money. Something like that. So they feel they're above the rules. They don't feel, and then they look for pity. They look for pity all the time. They come with emotional blackmail just to manipulate you. And then most times they are very selfish. They can be very selfish. They can be very, very, very self-centered too.
Now, there are people who are very generous. How can they be generous and also draw the line so that people don't always expect from them their time, their monies, and other resources they want to share?
Sometimes sometimes we also indulge in things such as toxic charity, because it could get to there are levels to where you can actually give. That there's a limit to your giving, but when you always feel entitled to give. You know, you could also be the one enabling this entitlement, and sometimes we don't know. We could also, every time they ask for it, or when you see them, you're always giving just to feel good about yourself and everything. But then it becomes often, and when you keep giving let me use the illustration. When you keep giving a dog a bone, keep giving him the dog will always come, and when it comes to you, he's always like, I want something. But that's just the same thing with humans. When you keep giving, when you keep enabling these things, they will always want more. They will always feel entitled to it. They feel like that's their right. They've done something to actually get to that level of to actually get you to give them all the time. So from Jay's comment now, I don't think he had to just move away. I don't think he needed to move away from there. He needed to stand his ground and tell him, oh sir, I understand I give you this, I give you that, but I give it out of the benevolence of my heart. Not because you are entitled to this thing. Make them, that's one thing about setting boundaries, taking and stamping your foot and actually saying, okay, this is this, and this is why I do this.
How would you advise, you've given one instance of, how Jay can work with his mechanic. But how would you, in your experience, in what ways have you seen, you know, entitlement being handled in relationships and being managed to a point where both parties are now, you know, sort of like in a good position? You know, maybe where one party felt, oh, this party is always entitled, and then you gave advice, and then, you know, they were able to adapt, you know,
okay,
their
so you want me to
relationship.
give an instance?
Yes, you don't
okay,
have to really,
I understand. I won't go into
Yes.
details, but okay. So there was a period where I had a couple where the husband actually complained that the wife never ever drops anything. He makes him do everything
Right.
and providing. He doesn't mind, but he feels like she should also, even if it's just the NEPA bill, even if it's just something, just do it. Then I speak to the wife, and then the wife says he's the man, he should provide. And then when we go into this, when we went further in our sessions, I realized that it comes from her background. Her dad had always been the provider, while her mom, even though she had a shop or somewhere, had to just sit back, and her money was her money, and her dad's money was every other person's money. She grew up with, so entitlement is in mostly in couples, and it has to do with background too, and your environment. Your environment growing up, what you see growing up is what you actually do when you actually get married yourself. Most times, if you do not train your brain, if you do not change your mindset about marriage, you don't go to trainings, you don't go to seminars, you don't go to counseling. If you don't change your mind, so what I made the man understand in that instance was that he needed to understand that this was her background, so she needed to change her mindset about such entitlement or being entitled to her husband's money, because basically the man was doing everything.
Taking a leaf from that, because you said it's her background, and a lot of people, I mean, everybody comes from different backgrounds. Now, looking at parenting, we say it's from childhood. How can parents and caregivers now begin to, you know, train children in ways that, you know, curbs entitlement and ensures that they don't grow up as from being entitled children to being entitled adults? Okay, so when a child is entitled, it usually reflects in their behavior. It reflects in their behavior. You can see an entitled child and in the way the person acts. A child comes to you and says, "Mommy, I want sneakers." Okay, why do you need sneakers? I just want new sneakers. I have a birthday I need to attend. And I'm like, you don't need new sneakers. You could actually use your old ones. And the child throws a tantrum actually. And then from that tantrum, you should be able to identify the fact that, okay, this child is feeling entitled, and you stamp your foot. You are the adult in the relationship, in the family. You are the adult in the family, so you should be able to tell the child, this is the reason why I'm not getting this for you, and this is the reason. Even if it throws a tantrum, you should make him understand that this is not the way the world is. Because if they grow up feeling that they could get everything they want, they'll go out there in the world and thinking that the world owes them something, and then everything they demand from the world they will get, and they end up getting disappointed and disappointed when they don't see life that way. Okay, all right, so there's something you said that just jolted my memory. Okay. You said explain to the children why they wouldn't get it. Yes. But growing up, and a lot of people, even now, some people who are parents now would say, I said no, and no is no. What do you have to say about that in terms of, you know, shaping the mindset of the child? Because the child feels, but I want it, and you know it's nice on me, and you're telling me no, you're not giving me a reason. Make them understand no is also a statement. Make them understand yes is not the only statement that exists. No is also a statement. You can't always have everything you want. You can't always get everything you want from life. Life is generally unfair. So let's start from our house and make you understand that this is actually not the way the world is. So no is a statement, and my no is my no.
I'm sure some parents listening to you this morning are going to be like, yes. All right. I want to touch on healthy entitlement. I find that quite interesting, you know, because when you put it into the context of the conversation that we're having this morning, they you know, most of what we've been discussing and breaking down is actually unhealthy entitlement. You know, so how do you draw the line between expectations and entitlement, or healthy entitlements, for instance, in a relationship?
Okay, so the difference between a healthy and unhealthy entitlement will be your expectation.
Right. Right.
What do you expect? Do you think the world actually owes you this? You don't when you are you're entitled private, for instance, in an organization, you're entitled to your salary. Why? Because you work, you earn it, you actually earned that salary. It's not like you're not coming today, you're coming tomorrow, you're not coming for 4 days, and then you still expect your full salary. Do you understand? So I'm using that instance to say healthy entitlement comes with you earning that entitlement. You don't just sit and expect things to actually happen for you. Okay.
Now I want to focus on relationships, because we see online how the entitlement in relationships keep going. But then now there's the area of maybe commitment, loyalty in relationship. What are the kind of expectations that couples require of each other?
The expectations in a relationship varies from the expectations in marriage. In marriage, you expect, because it's a different ballgame entirely. You're expected to provide as a man. You're expected to provide as a man. You're expected to provide as a woman, depending on your agreements before you get married and everything. So, the basic requirements are communication, trust, loyalty. And alongside, you should always have this level of commitment to your partner. Irrespective of who or where the person is from, or irrespective of the background, you should be able to understand the background, understand where this person is coming from, why this person is acting the way the person is acting, understand personality traits, understand the different types of personalities. We have different personalities. There's various ones online that you can actually take to actually determine if there's compatibility. Compatibility is very important in a relationship, both relationship and in marriage. It's very, very important. So it's very important that they understand their personalities and they understand their fighting, the way they settle fights. There's love languages, there's fight languages.
Wow.
Actually,
there's love languages and there's fight languages. Wow. There's a way someone expects to end a fight, and there's a way someone expects to resolve a quarrel, an argument, and there's a way someone expects to be like. And one thing about people is they feel like the fact that I give love this way. The fact that he gives, like, let's assume your boyfriend gives love by giving you gifts, doesn't mean he wants gifts as
his own love. That's his love language.
That's his love language. I've heard people, most people who give, they always expect acts of service in return. You do things for him. So in a relationship, those little things are what actually makes up what actually makes up the relationship, that aids the relationship in improving, in being healthy.
I feel like I'm in a session right now.
This is like a free session.
Yeah, I feel like a free session, pro bono. Like, I'm learning about toxic charity, which I find very interesting. You said something about fight language as well. That's actually the first I'm hearing of that. Yes. That there's actually a way, and you're absolutely correct. Now, so for people who, they have realized, that, okay, they have this entitlement mentality and they are trying to be better. They're trying to change. They're trying to, be better people. How would you advise them? What steps would you advise them to take in order to rid themselves of such entitlement mentality? Okay,
practice gratitude. As little as gratitude is, it goes a long way in changing our whole view about life. You could actually practice, you could just say thank you, as little as saying thank you for something, instead of feeling you're entitled to it. When someone gives you something, thank you so much, I really appreciate this. It sort of like breaks the layer of entitlement that you're feeling. It breaks it off, and practice humility. I think gratitude and humility, it's a huge way to actually overcome this sense of entitlement. And when you're with people, it's very important you treat them with compassion. Treat people with kindness. Treat people with respect. Don't be brash about it. Treat them like they are humans. By the time you treat them that way, you begin to feel that way. If you begin to feel like, oh, I'm human and I'm not as superior as I think I am, and I don't feel entitled to being treated specially.
Right.